What's up, dudes? Max here, back to another Dragon Ball breakdown featuring what is most likely the second most requested character of all the latest new characters, and it's going to be Hit. We're going to be focusing on the character, his gameplay, and I got some cool combos to show you guys at the end, but sadly a lot of my direct footage of these moves didn't come out too well, and I lost a bit of it, but there's a lot of people playing Hit, and we're going to use some spliced footage to show you exactly what's going on, but I still have some pretty sick combos. Again, this came from a Bandai Namco event where we were playing with the characters. We didn't get a ton of time, but enough to get a basic understanding of what Hit is about and how different he is from the rest of the cast. So the first thing I thought when I first saw Hit playable in the game was that, my god man, this guy really reminds me of Akihiko from Persona 4 Arena, albeit I didn't play a ton of that game. That was the first impression I got. I think others are probably going to be making comparisons to Slayer of the Guilty Gear series, especially considering how heavy, grounded rushdown he is, because that is absolutely what he is. This is one of the best characters in the game next to Yamcha, which we'll talk about a bit in the future, that is entirely good on the ground and really is kind of awful in the air. However, a lot of aerial battles don't really take place in Dragon Ball FighterZ unless you consider the pursuit, like your aerial dash. That I guess, but every character gets access to that. You don't really have a lot of like flying characters in this game for the most part, similar to other versus games, so I wouldn't be too worried about that because Hit excels on the ground so much that it's ridiculous. His prowess is mixing you up from a left and right direction, confirming hits from full screen and then moving his way in, and he is the first tried and true proper counter character. He's going to be going into counter states that can do something about projectiles, physical hits, and then immediately rapidly move across the screen and then punish you for it, which is awesome to look at. His counter hit states have multiple versions to them, so if you go into a counter hit state with like Fireball forward, he's just standing there in a neutral pose and then will execute multiple different attacks from that. Whether or not it's a punch, a rush forward, you can choose to dash the character forward, to kick them into the sky, anything like that. He has multiple moves that are the result of using directly counter attacks. And a lot of this character is going to be understanding what your opponent is going to do and then mixing up them as a result. The other thing that some will not like about Hit is the fact that he is going to be a very technical and probably execution-heavy character, at least in comparison to Dragon Ball FighterZ characters. I mean, come on, everything in this game is a fireball forward and a fireball back. This character is going to have stance canceling, meaning that you're going to go into a combo chain with him, stance or enter a stance through fireball forward with the light attack button, and then have to execute another attack right after that to get something to follow up after. So that part is a little bit more execution than I was used to for Dragon Ball characters. It actually took me a little while to get used to doing that. And as a result of doing it, there is some interesting stance cancel combos that I was able to find, and one that I'll highlight at the end of this video that actually show off some pretty crazy stuff that Hit can do. Now, this isn't all just about close-range battles and close-range attacks and left and right mix-ups. He does have some interesting range stuff that he can do. Hit does also have another stance that has this glowing form around him, and if he does either up, down, or forward, I believe, with an attack button, he does this multi-hit strike from a very, very, very long screen distance away. You can confirm into this using the vanish attack and then follow up with a full combo. So that's actually kind of interesting, and I do dig that about him, that he does have like either really close good range or some stuff that he can use from very far, but the mid-range, like, that seems to be maybe where Hit might be a little weak, and especially in the air because obviously he doesn't have a lot of aerial attacks. His sweep, mind you, is also ridiculously slow. His grounded attacks can be very quick on the light buttons, but the mediums are a lot different than some other characters, meaning that the combo path for Hit might be slightly different than you're used to for some other characters, where you just jump out of a standing medium attack and go for things. You can still absolutely do that with Hit, but just be prepared that some stuff is going to feel very different with this character. The immediate, obvious, like, good traits of Hit aren't going to be like blaringly apparent. It's going to take some work to get good with this guy, and I don't think that's specifically a bad thing. I actually kind of like that Hit and Beerus, which we'll also talk about in the future, are characters that are kind of changing the archetype of what we're used to in Dragon Ball FighterZ. It gives me a decent amount of good hope for the future of the other DLC characters that'll be showing up. that'll have some interesting play styles because, like I did say, a lot of characters in this game do have very similar traits and movesets, and you kind of play one and you play the other sort of similar, but that's the way in a lot of different versus games with their like auto chain combos or their combos in general that work a certain way. Hit sort of breaks that mold, and I dig that about him, and it also helps that he looks friggin' awesome when doing it. One last thing to note is his key attack move. When your key button is essentially your special button in this game, it just throws out a very small basic projectile that can be dashed through, and Hit doesn't actually have that. He does not have regular projectile attacks in the ways that you think. Instead, he's given a counter state on his key button, which you can repeat over and over again, so if you want to like parry multiple attacks and dash all over the place and look like you're completely in the opponent's mind, this is going to be the character to show off some sick shit. He does have an interesting unblockable attack where he sort of creates this projectile on the ground that hovers across the screen and can actually manifest itself at different points of the screen. It's just a nice kind of tool that you can use to make your opponent afraid of your ground-based attacks and get them to start jumping for some reason. So Hit does have access to more tools than most characters in this game, which makes him a bit more complex. But one of my favorite things at the end of all of this is like his movement and mobility. When you see this guy dashing across the screen really fast and manipulating different things from a counterattack to striking you to using a vanishing attack and converting that into big damage. His supers are also fairly versatile, with one being in the air, one being a grounded level 1, and then his level 3 also being on the ground too. So that's a good thing. You're going to have many opportunities to get damage with Hit, and when you do get damage with this character, it seems like it hurts quite a bit. Either way, absolutely one of my favorite characters in the game right now. I still feel like I barely touched the surface of him, like understanding the stance canceling stuff. He has a launcher from one of his counter hit states that you can kick them up into the air. This stuff just looks really neat. Either way, one of my favorite characters in the game right now, and I am looking forward to more of them, but I'm curious who you guys want to see next. We can take a look at Beerus, we can go into Gotenks, anything like that. If you want to see Nappa, if you want to see Ginyu, there is a lot of characters in this thing that I grabbed footage of, especially of Tien and Yamcha, and I want to see which one you want to see next. So please, in the comments below, let me know which character we should focus on for the next video, because luckily enough, unlike this one, I have a lot of footage for those other characters, and I lost a lot of my Hit footage. So until then, thank you dudes a ton for watching. Enjoy a couple of combos, and I appreciate a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. My name is Max, and I'll see you next time.
Here comes Damn you! Try to block this. Let's go. Watch it back. This is the stance. I continue to improve.